So you've been posting content for a while now, and nothing seems to really be catching on. You're not really seeing the views that you think you should deserve, and you're seeing all of your competition post out these posts that are just getting high views, high engagement. Seems to really just be kind of hitting the mainstream, and people seem to really love their content, but it's just not working for you. Well, it's probably because you're not really focusing on the right types of content or the right topics of your content that are kind of hitting that nerve for your audience that really make people resonate with it and want to engage with it and want to watch it. And that's why today I have Nick Frater, who is the COO of Frayter Media, where he helps his clients who struggle to effectively build their personal and business brands. And Freighter Media amplifies their presence and attracts more attention to their business through strategic and compelling digital content. And part of that is to find what those strategic topics are that are going to resonate with your audience. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you for having me on, David.
For sure. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because I know a lot of my audience kind of struggles with ideation. They go on podcasts or they try to create individual pieces of content, but kind of really understanding what's going to be that sweet spot of educational content, but also kind of that topic that really is going to kind of strike the nerve in their audience. It's a difficult one. It's a tough needle to thread. So I'm excited to chat today. But before we get into all that, let's actually start. So, COO of Freighter Media, kind of walk me through what is Freighter Media and kind of what do you do? What's your role there?
Mhm. Yeah, so Freighter Media builds brands for celebrities, executives, as well as podcasts. So we specialize with business executives as well as in the sports niche as well. So, and in sports, it's mostly combat sports. We help people create content that is really true to their own brand, the message that they want to get out to the world, and attract more eyeballs to whether that's a business that they're promoting, whether they just themselves want to become a thought leader in their space. Really getting the most amount of attention and positioning themselves as best as they can in this new digital ecosystem.
Sure. And let's kind of go back then, because this is, right now, this is the sweet spot. Digital content, getting on camera, speaking about your business and growing your personal brand is the wave right now. But let's kind of go back to day one. This is a family business. Kind of how did you and your family, I believe it's your brother, correct, get started in this media creation business? Kind of take me back to day one for you.
Yeah, so I'm a software developer slash IT by education and by career. So this is a new world for me. But my brother was Mike Tyson's former social media manager. He's worked with a lot of big celebrities, Steven Crowder, Brendan Schaub, a lot of different individuals managing social media, building brands for them. And we actually moved out to Cyprus, the country of Cyprus, about a year ago. My brother was building his business there. And then I was just working as a software developer while helping my brother kind of, part time when I wasn't at work. And kind of the past few months around, I would say August to September, we started getting a big influx of clients, people such as CEOs of AI companies, such as big MMA stars that were looking to promote themselves, promote their new projects through digital content. And that's how we got enough business where I was able to make the jump full time. And now it's just been, kind of full head of steam.
Interesting. What do you equate to that spike in business?
Partnerships, definitely strategic partnerships and networking. So when my brother was in Cyprus, he was doing a lot of networking with PR firms that were looking to have a social media person to manage the social media for their clients, as well as networking in the combat sports space. That's a very niche kind of industry. Not a lot of people have, a deep knowledge of combat sports and a deep knowledge of social media. So my brother had both the two, and we were able to find some good partners there as well.
Nice. So you come from an IT background in software development. What are some of the things that you were typically focused on in software development?
Building applications for clients. So in Cyprus, we're working with like big telecom companies, big banks, building out applications for them.
Sure. And then how do you find this transition into more digital media and digital marketing? What kind of skill sets did you kind of bring along with you from the software space into digital marketing?
Definitely, yeah. Software development is kind of a skill that can transcend a lot of different industries, and especially like the logical thinking, I would say, is like the most important thing. Knowing how to think step by step, break down a problem, and create a step by step solution to solve it. But also, I also say digital marketing isn't rocket science, it's not physics where you need a PhD to really understand it and be successful at it. A lot of it is just hustling, being able to hustle and learn new things on the go very quickly, as well as having a good team around you. And I think that's, what I attribute our success to is I was able to find a great team of video editors, of other content coordinators that work for us, graphic designers, and they make our job so much easier.
And I know with software development, IT, it can be very technical. And I know a lot of technical people sometimes struggle with content creation or translating their expertise into content because they think so technically, but their audience just wants things simply. And the two sometimes clash. A lot of software, like indie software product builders, are really good at building the product, but then when it comes to marketing it, sometimes struggle. Did you face any of those transitional periods where you're like, okay, I need to stop thinking like a software developer and start thinking more like, a marketer?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why my brother and I are such a great combination. I'm more of the, I guess, super logical business, thinker, while my brother is more of the creative. And a lot of the times, when we were just starting out, I was creating real ideas and content ideas. My brother would be like, okay, this would make sense to like a super smart person, but you got to break it down for like the average person because people don't want to be thinking when they're scrolling through social media or consuming content. So just break it down as simply as you can. I think there's this massive shift. In school, we were always taught to write super fancy, super sophisticated in writing class. Now everything's kind of been dumbed down so that people can consume it in the most easy and convenient way possible.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up, this idea of you got good grades when you
Mhm.
spoke more intelligently and you went further in depth. And nowadays, with the shorter form content and the more entertainment, education, edutainment content, it really is like, all right, let's do a fifth grade level, and so
Yeah.
you get your A plus by making it as simple as possible. Um, so also too, I think with software development and being good with tech in digital marketing, about like 80% of digital marketing these days. I mean, digital marketing is using softwares, using platforms and such to kind of create all this stuff. I know you guys
Mhm.
work with your clients to like produce podcasts or long form videos and short form videos. And I'm assuming there's a lot of kind of a tech stack underneath that. What are some of the things that you guys are using to support your clients?
I'm not going to say Chat GPT because that's the obvious one. Everybody uses that, so that's kind of goes without saying. But one really cool tool that we've started using is called ManyChat. So on one of our clients' Instagram pages, when somebody leaves a comment, the ManyChat automatically sends them a DM through our client's Instagram page saying, "Oh, if you like this content, check out our YouTube," and it directs more viewers to our YouTube channel as well. We also use tools such as Buffer. That's, a way that we can get access and post on our clients' social channels on their behalf without needing direct access. So that, provides them more peace of mind in terms of security and, less vulnerabilities in terms of social media.
Sure. And now you work with your brother, and this
Mhm.
is like a family agency. How is that working with a family member in an agency? I mean, you guys got together, said, "Let's do this together." How's that been? Being brothers fight, but when it's business, is that something separate?
Yeah, so everybody always says don't mix family and business. That's the cliche you hear all the time, but it's been great so far. I mean, nobody I could trust more than my brother. My brother and I have been through a lot. When we were building out our business in Cyprus, we were sharing a bed, our toilet didn't work, didn't have a shower curtain, could barely afford food some days, and just going through that with somebody like your brother is just amazing. And there were moments where I definitely wanted to quit. I don't know if I would still be doing this if I had to do it by myself, but having an accountability partner and somebody to keep pushing you is amazing.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you bring on business partners and they end up kind of growing into what feels like family, and then sometimes you just
Mhm.
bring on family that grow into business partners. Can definitely relate to that. So let's kind of start getting into some of this strategy here. So today we want to focus on, well, let's actually start with some of the services that you provide your clients, and then we'll kind of lead into this because the two kind of go hand in hand. So you help support um, you know, people who are like CEOs and thought leaders, but also kind of the sporting industry, the combat sports industry, and help them create long form
Mhm.
content. The two actually kind of live in two different worlds. Maybe you can explain it. Obviously, you can explain it better, but walk us through kind of the two main pillars of clients that you work with right now.
Mhm. Yeah, so it all centers around first, it starts with brand strategy. So what message do you want to push out? How do you want the world to see you? And I think that can go across both industries. So for thought leaders, we've worked with AI and healthcare CEOs. Obviously, they want to become thought leaders in those particular spaces. While in combat sports, we're working with fighters that want to maybe branch out outside of fighting. We have this one client, Mike Perry, who just started his own fight organization, so he's using content and his podcast to promote his new organization, position himself as more of a CEO rather than just being a fighter. And obviously that's kind of base level. And then on top of that is the content itself that we help people create, whether that be long form. We use Riverside to film long form content and then either create, full podcast episodes or short form clips that we think would grab the most people's attention, as well as any strategy or kind of additional content that needs to go on top of that, such as graphics or thought provoking captions.
Sure. And yeah, shout out to Riverside. That's what we're filming on today. It's a great tool for hosting guests for podcasts. So what you said there was okay, long form content, and then knowing what will perform well online to spin that into shorter form content. Walk us through when you are going into creating long form content, is there a strategy that you're already thinking about of, okay, we need to make sure we capture this soundbite or cover this topic because we know it's going to perform well? And if so, how are you thinking about that?
Mhm. Yeah, so for all of our podcasts, we create a run of show for the clients. We do heavy research on the guest beforehand, seeing what moments can we bring up, what interesting facts can we talk about that would create the most amount of, I guess, buzz with the audience members. And that just requires obviously doing research on the guest as well as knowing your industry, what is the audience really caring about. And in terms of YouTube, especially, thumbnails and titling are huge. So in thumbnails, you need to have kind of three components: a hero, a villain, and a curiosity gap. There needs to be some sort of, I guess, question that needs to be answered, that the viewer needs to get by clicking on the video, and as well as the title. The title should also focus on just one most interesting part of the video that will again then need to be answered throughout the video, so the viewer has to stay and watch.
Sure. So you mentioned there or researching the guest and then understanding what all the details are about them and what could be interesting there, and then kind of in this Venn diagram also looking at what the audience, the target audience would find interesting. What types of how do you find those nuggets? Is that something that you maybe you helping tools are helping you with, or is that just an intuition that you have?
You're talking about short form content, correct?
If you're going into the interview, and there's certain topics that you want to ask, how are you deciding on what would be that good topic? And then afterwards, we can get into kind of how do you decide on what clips to bring out?
So two kind of main pillars. One is relevance. So is there something that's relevant today in the moment? Maybe some breaking news, maybe a new, fight is announced, maybe a new breakthrough in AI is announced. Then we would obviously want to touch on that because that's being searched by people, because of its relevance. As well as controversy. That also we find that has been able to sell. That also creates a lot of debate and discussion in the comments. which obviously increases viewership as well. So you want to make sure you're not kind of being really vanilla on your content as well. I would say if you can kind of teeter the line and polarize people in a good way, because you don't want your content to be for everybody. You want to really target your select niche and get the most amount of engagement you can from them. Because if you just have everybody watching your content is for everybody, that's not really meaningful. I would say that's not going to lead to a lot of conversions, whether that's for your business or just a loyal following in general.
So let's double down on this strategy because I think people are weary of being too, um,
Mhm.
I won't say political or yeah, divisive, if you will. Um, but the goal here is that you want to kind of stir the pot a little bit just to kind of get that engagement on the content. What's I mean, engagement's good, but we also want like qualified engagement. Have you seen on the back end when these posts are being published and they're creating that engagement and viewership? Is that still like the quality type of engagement that we want to see from our content, or is it just is it is any engagement good engagement, or is there still kind of that directed quality engagement that we're looking for?
Definitely, you want quality directed engagement. For example, we recently had a case where we purchased an Instagram account for promotion of one of our clients, and we were worried when we went to the back end that all the engagement would be from, let's say, India or Bangladesh or kind of a country that's not in the target audience or the target demographic of our client. But we found out that most of the engagement was from the United States, was from these sort of Western countries that is exactly who our client wants to be targeting. So definitely think about your demographics. What countries do you want to target? Do you want to target men, women, and all of that you can check out on the back end from these social media tools, which is super helpful and more important. I would rather take a bit less followers but make them more qualified than just have a bunch of followers to pump up the numbers, but it doesn't really lead to any conversions at the end of the day.
What would you say to then, trying to be a bit divisive here, and kind of stir some pots? What would you say to people who want to get into this strategy of trying to be a little bit more divisive for the sake of getting that quality soundbite that they know will perform well, who are weary of doing that because they don't want to, um, yeah, be kind of seen as a divisive person or someone who's controversial? What would you say to that person if they're kind of on the edge about that strategy?
I mean, obviously, there's a line, if especially if you're in the more corporate professional side, there are certain things you can't say or be super kind of, don't share everything you're thinking about, because then that could lead to some issues. But for example, if you really strongly believe in remote work versus work from home, that's a big issue. That's remote work versus work in the office. I mean, that's a big kind of dividing issue right now. Some people are super pro office, some people are super pro remote work. That's one way you can be divisive, kind of alienate one group of people, but then maybe attract people that are, super into remote work. And if you're offering maybe advice for remote workers or some sort of remote work course, then that's a great way to get qualified leads or qualified targeted audience towards you and your brand and your content. So think about industry specific ways you can be divisive. Obviously, it doesn't have to be political or anything religious, super controversial, but think about how you can be divisive while attracting the people that you really want to target in your specific industry.
Yeah, I think that's the key point there is don't be divisive just for the sake of engagement, but be
Mhm,
divisive for the sake of kind of leading your ideal client to that post, right? If you have a strong
mhm,
opinion and you want to attract people who have that same opinion because, you know, people who have the similar or same strong opinions seem to want to flock together, right? I mean, you just look at the
mhm.
political space and you can see that clearly. So if you're trying to attract your tribe, sometimes having that strong opinion out there is actually doing you better. Um, so we know going into long form content how to prep for the types of questions we want to be thinking about or covering. What about when we have a long form piece of content? How are you guys evaluating a video to see what those hot scenes are, those highlights are to spin off into short form content?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, first and foremost, it's really important to prepare as much as you can for the long form. Try to make that as good as you can because the short form content can only be as good as the long form content. You know, you can't take a soundbite if there is no soundbite to really take from there. So but what we do for a lot of our clients, we have a deep knowledge, especially in the combat sports space, of what's hot, what people want to see, what's has been interesting in the past, and we manually go through all the videos, pick out the best moments, whether that be something controversial, whether that be something that's trending. We use a lot of analytics tools as well. One tool we use is called um, I'm blanking on it right now, but it's a YouTube tool that Mr. Beast just came out with. It gives you an analysis on all the best YouTube thumbnails, YouTube titling, what people are searching up, what's outperforming, what's underperforming. So we also use that in terms of thinking about what would be a good short and what we can clip from long form content.
Interesting. I'll have to look up what that tool is. Oh, can you give us a few examples of times that you've been able to find like, all right, we just know this is going to be a short form piece that's going to play well, and then kind of what that result was on the back. Kind of, what was the setup? Was there kind of a setup going into the long form? They just nailed it in the long form. You clipped that piece, and then it performed well on the back end.
Yeah, so our most viewed video for one of our clients, our most viewed short, got 1.4 million views. It was a fighter that would drink wine and essentially get drunk before his weigh-ins. When he was cutting weight, he would drink wine the night before. Uh, that was found just by us going through every episode of our client, looking at the moments, and obviously weight cutting, and that's a big topic in mixed martial arts. So we thought that was an interesting angle there. But then also getting drunk during weigh-ins, that kind of leads to curiosity or like why would somebody do that? So that's that curiosity gap there that makes people want to click on the reel and stay to the end, as well as one where a MMA fighter submitted five people. He basically out wrestled five people in one day, which also received over like 900,000 views. I picked that one myself. But also again that leads to that curiosity gap that I'm talking about. Like how could he take on five people in one day? And people need to stay to the end to figure out how and why that happened.
Do you find that there's certain types of clips that perform better than others? It sounds like in your there's a handful of your examples, they've been kind of stories that have been told and crazy events that have happened in someone's life. Is there commonalities you're finding in what performs well?
Yeah, so we found that it's has been kind of less going towards, just short, controversial sound bites, I would say, and more of those story reels that perform better. So maybe a few years ago, it was like a 15-second reel of, somebody just screaming or something super controversial would perform well. Now it's more of these, yeah, long form stories, these 30, 40, 50-second reels that give people more of a story that they want to see.
So it's a large part of why I like to get into my guest story early on in the episode is because people are connected to stories. They learn more about the person, but they also can visualize the journey. So storytelling and marketing and branding is kind of go hand in hand. Um, so great, and you guys are working with some really great people. Can you kind of walk us through some of the highlights of some of the clients that you've either had or are working with now?
Yeah, so I could break it down into two pillars. Our CEOs, the most of them are under NDA, but we've worked with people in the healthcare space, CEO of an AI company. Right now, we're working with a news reporter who wants to build her brand and really become a thought leader in the reporting space, as well as attract more clients. So we were working with her on, building her brand voice, how to properly position herself, all types of content like that. And in the MMA space, we're working with Mike Perry. He was a former UFC fighter, but now he's a champion in bare knuckle boxing. He just started his own fight organization, Dirty Boxing Championship. He's coming out with his own tequila brand. So it's really, really cool to see somebody go from just a fighter to branching out into all these other projects, as well as Yoel Romero. He was also and still is a fantastic MMA fighter. He's Cuban, so we managed his show in Spanish. That's also been interesting of uh, not just having English speaking or American shows, but branching out and doing multilingual shows as well. So it's been a great experience working with these guys and seeing their themselves outside of fighting as well.
And growing this agency, you mentioned that there was a couple strategies I think your brother was focused on that helped really start to kind of hockey stick the growth. Has there been outside of that some other marketing tactics, personal branding strategies that you guys have been focused on that has seemed to pay some ROI in terms of bringing in new clients?
So obviously you have the outbound methods, cold email, cold calling, cold DMing, things like that, which that I would say, in 2025 and as we keep kind of moving forward, that's just going to be a volume approach. So you're going to need to send out a bunch to get just a few responses, a few clients from that. The surest way, but also the slowest way is through word of mouth, building trust, content, inbound leads. It's works the best, I would say. That's how we've gotten most of our clients is through word of mouth, is through networking, as well as some inbound leads through creating content on LinkedIn, Instagram. I know that's a big goal for Freighter Media in 2025. Put out more content, get more eyeballs because the inbound leads have been coming in, and we just want to keep doing more of that because that's always the highest quality leads.
Yeah, it's something I really preach is this concept of referrals are typically the easiest lead to
Mhm.
close because some other trusted source is saying, trust these guys. They're going to do great things for you. Go in there. And they're already pre qualified because a ex happy client is referring them. And so all of they're coming in pre sold essentially. So that sales call is pretty easy. Um, and so we want to be able to replicate that concept. And what I found is long form content where you demonstrate what you do for your clients, case studies of success, just insightful content that takes things that live in your brain and then puts them into visuals for your client to understand, okay, I see what these guys can do and I trust them because I see all the case studies and all that kind of stuff. That acts as your referral source. That's pre-selling your clients the same way that an ex-client, ex-happy client is referring uh, leads to you. So and it's much more scalable and it doesn't
Mhm.
sleep and it's working for you 24/7. I'm very much obviously an advocate of that as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like the person is able to meet you before they, actually come face to face and speak with you. Because, even when we were hiring for positions, when we would have a candidate, no profile photo, nothing on LinkedIn, just a blank resume. We don't know, is this a real person? Who is this person? Can we trust them? But when we see somebody that has content, high quality profile photo, maybe some videos showing that they're knowledgeable in the space, that automatically builds so much more trust than just somebody without all that. Because as we go forward, your digital identity is becoming so much more important and maybe even more important than your real identity. At least at some point it will be.
Of that. Wow, that's a good soundbite right there. I'll be clipping
Yeah.
that. Great. So if people are interested, excuse me, if people are interested in learning more about you and Freighter Media and everything that you guys have going on, well, actually, first, before we get into that, is there anything that you want to kind of ensure we highlight for our guest today? There's something you want to put an exclamation mark on it that if they walk away today, that they make sure they know this one thing.
Mhm. I would say the most important thing that I've kind of learned this past year and am really going to be emphasizing this year, I mean, we already talked about it, is building your brand and putting out content. It doesn't have to be something super fancy, super crazy at the beginning. Just start putting out content and think about what do you want the world to know you for? What do you want to either be an expert in or what are you passionate about in? And just start creating content about that. Think about the best channels. So if it's more professional based, obviously go for something like a LinkedIn, like a YouTube, something more casual. It could be Instagram or these different channels. But yeah, just start creating content, start building trust, start getting your name out there because that will do you wonders moving forward. And no matter what position you're in, you can always benefit from that.
Love it. Now, if people wanted to learn more about you and Freighter Media, where can they go?
Yeah, they can check out our website, freightermedia.com. Freightermedia.com. They could see people that we've worked with, some of the results we've gotten our clients, what services we offer, etc. They could also check me out on LinkedIn. It's my name, Nick Freighter. Hopefully, I'm not too hard to find on there. But I'm always posting content on there, video content from different podcasts I'm on, different takes that I have. So, would love for you guys to engage and connect with you on there.
Awesome. Nick, thanks so much for coming on today, walking us through some of these strategies for how we can find the sweet spot of entertainment and educational content so that we can start engaging our audiences a bit more. So, thank you, Nick, and see you all in the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint.